So look, overall, folks, the market is still quite good, no question, but it's easier than sort of 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Well, it's been easier in July than it was earlier in the year. So for the first 4 or 5 months of the year, and indeed potentially even late last year. Now, this is just my kind of feedback from here on the ground with my colleagues at Low & Co. And some of that is coming through and some of it's not yet coming through in the data. It's really quite a mixed picture in terms of what the data shows. So I'll do my best to sort of add some flavour and colour to the data in terms of what we're seeing on the front line. Because of course, what we see every day and every week is the activity at the front line of the market, people coming through open homes, talking to the buyers, talking to the sellers. Of course, that sentiment and that thinking and that confidence or lack thereof in the sales and offers and stuff until 1, 2, 3 months later. But overall, look, we can't deny that the market still is quite tough. It just seems to be easing over the last couple of months. Buyers, I still suggest take advantage of these conditions while they last. Alrighty, so median sale price 765 versus 733 12 months ago. That's up 4%. See from the shape there, it's been broadly stable, bit up, bit down since July 2022. Over the last 3 or 4 months, you can see there median prices have actually softened a bit. Looking at the blue lines, the 6-month average, it's been level over the last few months after dipping a bit and then up a bit. Broadly flat, as I say, since about July 2022, after we saw sort of 8 or 9 months of very steep decline. That's the median sale price, of course, which is not as good a guide of underlying value as the Real Estate Institute House Price Index. So let's have a look at that. League tables, we still have the auspicious winning the league tables, if you like, at 25% down from the peak, which for Wellington was October 2021. We were as low as 26% down. We then recovered to 22% down, which, although it's going from 26 to 22, that's actually an improvement of about 6%, not 4%. And we're back down to 12, so we've lost a bunch of that ground. Look at Auckland, not far off us, and Auckland and Wellington certainly are the two markets that have fared the worst. Pretty interesting, two main metropolitan cities have fared the worst over this downturn. And some of the areas still doing quite well. Like, look at that, Otago has just reached a new high. Southland only down 1%, and a couple of others there. So South has done particularly well, and other locations being not the main suburban centres. I suspect it's a little bit of a hangover from the extra focus that was placed on lifestyle versus convenience to work and work from home, or waning now. So the more lifestyle locations further out of town are still doing relatively better than the urban centres. That's over the last year, you can see there. Look, Wellington's been flat, down 0.3 of 1%. Let's call it neutral. We of course recovered during 3. We continued to gain some ground, then we lost some ground over the last 12 months. So overall flat, but that was made up of some increases followed by some decreases 6 to 8 months. All down 2.4%, only beaten in terms of biggest loss by Northland. So still Auckland and Wellington among the biggest losers, if you like. New Zealand, but broadly flat. And over the last 3 months, you can see there, Wellington has again fared really compared to other locations. Auckland down to New Zealand 1.9% overall. Maybe there's a degree of by the softness in the public sector labour market. Of course, Wellington has greater exposure to. Our sense from talking to a lot of that has now, not the job losses themselves, it's still tough out there, but months ago when the election result was reasonably fresh, there was still a lot of uncertainty on the part of public sector labour, public sector employees. They were not sure who was going to lose their jobs and how many were going to lose their jobs. So although in the end 1 out of 200 might have lost their jobs, all 100 of them were worried about losing their jobs. And so until they knew what they all sit in their hands. Now that we have clarified, now that some of that uncertainty has been removed and some of the answers have been provided, that you lot are keeping your jobs. Of course, that's the vast majority of them. There's a portion that are losing them. Those portion that we're losing, a bunch of them will be pulling their horns in, and that's very tough for them and so on. But the rest of them feel a bit more secure, and so they can get on with life again. So we have seen less caution amongst the buyer population in Wellington recently compared to, say, 6 months ago when that uncertainty was much greater. Looking here at Wellington in particular for the house price index. So look at the shape of that graph there. We did perform quite well throughout 2023. Throughout 2024 so far, you can see pretty bad, pretty poor, soft values again. The blue line is the monthly results. The orange line is the 3 monthly. And so you can see there we're sort of just over 4% or so. What's that? 4% exactly over the last 3. We did go a lot deeper than that, of course. Early 2022, mid 2020, and 2023, we recovered up to about 4% every 3 months or so for a time there. So, yep, we had last year and a weak market this year. It's just repeating the same message, really. Over you look, there's a degree of variability in those results in the territorial authorities of Wellington. Quite strong in Upper Hutt, quite weak in Lower Wellington City, and over the last 3 months, that even more the case. So 5% down in Wellington City, 3% for Porirua, and Lower Hutt, Upper Hutt not faring quite as badly. And Wellington City, there's the shape of the graph in Wellington City. So you can see it's broadly the same kind of trend, but it's a bit more jagged. It's a bit more extreme highs and lows, more variability, which you would expect with a smaller sample size. But as you can see there, look, 5.1% down over the last 3 months for the Wellington region. And so, yeah, Wellington City certainly has not been faring well throughout 2024. On the supply side, new listings, 575 in July versus 371 a year ago. 2 years ago, it's pretty similar to 2 years ago, marginally ahead of that, and a big increase compared to July a year ago. Just remember that July, throughout those times there, the vendors were on strike. Here's July a year ago. So look at these supply volumes coming to the market, very, very low indeed. And so it is, this most recent result is off a low base. So it looks like a big increase. Compared to 2 years ago, it's only a small increase, and that's perhaps what's more typical. And look at the overall shape of things. We had these big increases coming to the market in summertime and early sort of autumn, and then the last months it's dropped right down as we hit winter, and that's typically the case. As we come into winter, most vendors think winter's a bad time to sell, therefore don't sell. As a result, very few new properties coming to the market. It actually makes the market better to sell, and that is indeed what we're sort of seeing. I wouldn't say the market is racing away at all, but it's just become there's been a bit more activity. The slowdown of new listings coming to the market over the last couple of months has given buyers a message that, hey, you can't count on a whole lot of new stock coming on next week. If you're reasonable this week, jump on it. Don't assume there's going to be 5 more next week. And so we are seeing also buyers circling back around again and looking at listings which they dismissed 1, 2, 3 months ago. Those listings are again getting some more attention as the amount of stock flowing onto the market has reduced a bit. But look, the overall trend is still a significant increase in new listings on a 6-monthly moving average. And so look at that. We got over the last 6 months, the moving average of 770 versus 472 a year ago. So an increase of 63%. You quite clearly see that in the graph there. Absolutely massive. I mean, it looks almost like a doubling, doesn't it? At the low point there, we're going from a bit over 400 to a bit under 800. So certainly overall in the last 12 months, a massive increase in the amount of stock coming to the market after we saw a massive decrease, to be fair. So where we are compared to history, you can see there that we're still at reasonably high levels, but not out of control high compared to back here in 2016, even 2017 first half. Then it sort of started running away a bit. But yeah, compared to 12 months ago, a massive increase. New listings typically lower in winter, that is correct, but higher than normal for July. There we go. So there's the July 139. So at 575, we are actually, that's actually quite a big listing month compared to normal Julys. Of course, July compared to February or March, it's very low, but compared to what's typical for July, it's quite high in the listing volume. The form, so still 55% more the market than we saw last July. All right, sales 588 12 months ago and 2 years ago. So again, massive increase compared to, oh, not massive, but significant increase compared to a year ago. Moderate increase compared to 2 years ago. So again, if you remember, well, let's see, look at the shape of that graph. This graph here being new listings coming to the market, and compared to the increase in sales, it's much more modest, much more gentle increase. So there's no question about it. The number of sales taking place have been increasing. It's been a bit more variable, a bit more up and down, but the degree to which we're increasing has been way more gentle than the level of increase we saw in the amount of stock coming to the market. So if you look at this stat on its own, and someone said, look, how's the market going? Are there more properties selling? Yes, there are more properties selling. You could take that alone to mean, great, the market's in better shape. Part more properties are selling, which have relatively a ton more listings coming on. And so we might have 50% more listings on and only 10 to 20 selling. And so an individual listing that actually makes to sell the although for a selling, the ratio of listing to selling has dropped. Bit of a dichotomy, if you like, in the market. Sales being made, but not more to the same degree as new listings coming. And see there, even though we're generally sales taking sales in July, still, you know, a margin less than what's typical for July. And we did see an aberration in the data there in June. We saw 20% fewer in place than the previous June. Since 2003, we've seen increases in taking place compared to 12 months prior. So I've already done on the return to or be a normal trend. Last approaching is with more sales taking. How long is it taking to sell? So it's to quite long durations. Looks 46 days versus 52 a year ago. 38 is typical, and we're at 46. So as you can see there, look at that blue bar charts. It's longer than we've seen typically over the last 12 months or so, but not nearly as long as we were seeing during the really tough times of the market, which was sort of early 2023 and throughout a lot of 2022, but not far off. A bit of a reduction there from June to July. I wouldn't say it's not enough to call it a trend, but let's keep our eye on that one. Inventory, again, this is showing a bit of a clear trend there over the last sort of 15 months or so, a clear increasing trend as the market was quite strong in 2023. Sort of the peak of the strength was in the middle of the year. We hit 10 weeks worth of supply. We're now back up to 17 weeks worth of supply. Compared to 2 years ago, 24 weeks, as you can see here, this big mass of long inventory. We're not nearly at those levels there, but at 17 weeks, more than what's the long-term average of 15 weeks, and really significantly longer than the average over the last 10 years or so, which is not quite 10 weeks. So it does feel tough out there. As I say, I suspect this might be a bit of a lag on this data because we're actually seeing that the conditions over the last 1 to 2 months have improved a bit for sellers. We've got on the listings on TradeMe, so you can see there, look at the blue bar chart, it is reducing over the last 4 or 5 months or so. That is typical for wintertime, but compared to the same time, 41% more, and 2 years ago, broadly the same, 3% difference. Look at the overall showings, you can see that in the last couple of years, we've had significantly more supply than we have for the 7 or so years prior, but still nowhere near the levels that we saw when I first started collecting this data way back in early 2000. And there it is in another format. So although supply levels have been coming down over the last, seasonal reductions as we head into winter over the last few months, it's still, the trend has been considerably more listings than we saw 12 months ago. So here's a bit of data from just our own company here. This sort of indicates activity levels. So the number of people attending open homes is the red line across the top. Now just remember, this is throughout the entire life of the property. So for all properties, including ones that are brand new to the market, which will get more at their open home, and ones that have been on the market for 10 weeks, which will get fewer at the open home. But on average, you can see the trend there. Middle of last year, we were getting strong volumes up there, bit of a peak, and then after the election, it weakened, come time back up in January, and then a sharp drop off. And over the last 4 or 5 months, open home traffic significantly down compared to the middle of 2023, for example, at between 3 and 4. In July, we were approaching 5 again, which is the first time we've been up at that level. Except for January, really, in 2024, the first time since January 2024 that we were up at that level. A bit of a tailing off in August so far. That could be just variability, but it's still at 4.5. It's still higher than we've seen for a few months. Other than the 4.79, of course, but at that mid to high 4s, it's stronger than we saw for the couple of months prior to that. So that's a positive sign. And interestingly, it's correlated with the number of open homes taking place. So this is the number of open homes here. You see the number of open homes goes up, the number of attending the open home comes down. It's natural because the buyers have got more to choose. The buyer pool is being over a large number of open homes. This is completely counter to what most vendors are thinking. Now, summer is a good time to sell. I'm going to sell in summer. Therefore, there's more on the market in summer. Therefore, there's more to choose from. Therefore, it's harder attention of the buyers. Open homes being conducted right down, and we've seen activity at each open home. Now, not a big increase, but an increase nonetheless. What about off? Not quite the same degree of trend, but you can see we dropped right down. Interestingly, we recovered a bit in earlier, and the last we've been gently recovering again. Offers, of course, comes after open home traffic, so there'll be in seeing improvement in this result. But certainly, the sense we're seeing on that we are seeing buyers circle back round again and reconsider properties that they declined or turned down, 1, 2, 3 months ago. And as less properties come into the market, they're being forced to reconsider things that they thought they didn't need to consider earlier. So that's good news for any of you thinking of selling. And because spring is coming, in a couple of months, that if you are thinking of selling in the next sort of 3, 4, 5 months, is going to be better than later. Even with the good weather arriving, everyone else will think in the same way, and so there'll be a ton more stock market, probably October. All right, folks, Wellington values have been soft since the election. new listings have increased versus last month and also 12 months ago. Sales volumes also up versus last month and 12 months ago, although not the same degree of increase in sales that we've seen in the increase in new listings overall this year. Duration to sell is quite long again, but a couple of days down on last. In fact, the highest level we've seen since March 2023. TradeMe listings are up versus 12 months ago, but down seasonally as we've hit into winter. And sellers, the market is tough again. But as I say, that comment was basically left over from last month. It is no question it is still a market out there, but we have found that it has gotten better a couple of months ago. And my message to buyers, of course, as usual, is make the most of these conditions. And a big thanks to Real Estate Institute and realestate.co.nz. I hope my microphone has been behaving and you have heard what I said. Most of you still seem to be here. Hopefully it hasn't been too bad. But anyway, anyone want to ask questions or have a chat about any of this? Happy to have a discussion, or interesting to get your feedback, or anyone who's out there, what are you noticing? Yep, happy to chat.
Just wondering about how long a property is on the market for. Is that trending downwards? Do we have any data on that?
So here it is here. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the days to sell.
Yeah. Okay. So it's 46 at the moment.
Yeah, 46 days compared to 52 a year ago, 61 2 years ago. Right.
Excellent.
But if you look at the shape, the shape of the graph more recently, middle of last year, it was taking, it wasn't taking as long. So you can see there the graph dipped down below 38, which is the normal. We got down to sort of 31 here. That's what's that, December. It's not a typical month, bad month to look at. But you can see the general shape. So it's taking longer now than it was throughout sort of mid to late 2023, but that's just a sign. Talked about the market to late 2023 was firmer because there was much less supply on the market, and there was the same degree of uncertainty in the public sector labour market, which came about after the election in October. And so once that happened, the buyers pulled back a bit because they were at their jobs, or a bunch of them did, and who had been putting their plans on hold because the market had been so poor in 2022. Then they saw evidence in 2023 that things were selling again, prices were recovering a little bit, and they thought, excellent, I'll get on with it, because life doesn't stop just because falling. People still need to move homes and that sort of stuff, but they can delay their decision to move for a period. The market, they decided, all right, let's bring our property back on the market again, or bring it to market. But I want to wait till after the election. Everyone, for some reason, wants to wait till after the election. So the election happened, and everyone put their property on the market. And so we literally saw numbers of property on the market double in Wellington City, that is, between October 2023 and June 2024. We went from 465 was on the market to 920. And that, of course, makes it harder to sell, and that's why you get this number of days to sell increasing significantly as a result of that.
Nice. Thanks, Adam. Legend.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So that's all, folks. We'll call it a night. Guys, have a good evening. Stay safe out there, and reach out if you want individualized advice. Otherwise, take care. See you next time.
You too, Adam. Thanks heaps, mate. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.